It all started on a rainy Tuesday evening, the kind that makes you want to curl up with a blanket and forget the world outside. But for Jake, a 28-year-old tech enthusiast, the allure of the dark web was too tempting to resist. He had always been fascinated by the hidden corners of the internet, where anonymity reigned and secrets lay buried. That night he logged in, his heart racing with anticipation. As he navigated through various forums, he stumbled upon a thread titled "Time Capsules, What Would You Want to Know?" Intrigued, Jake clicked on it. The users shared stories about buried treasures and forgotten memories, but one post caught his eye. It was from a user named Cryptic Seeker, who claimed to have discovered a time capsule that revealed chilling details about its owner's future. Jake's curiosity piqued. He followed the link provided and found himself in a dimly lit chat room filled with cryptic messages and eerie images. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as if he had stepped into another realm. After some back-and-forth exchanges, Cryptic Seeker agreed to share their experience in exchange for Jake's promise to keep it confidential. "Once you open it," Cryptic Seeker warned, "there's no going back. You'll see things you're not meant to see." Jake felt a shiver run down his spine but dismissed it as mere theatrics. He was ready for an adventure. After some time, Cryptic Seeker sent him an encrypted file labeled timecapsule_secrets with trembling hands. Jake downloaded it. The file contained images of an old metal box covered in rust and dirt, alongside a series of unsettling predictions written in shaky handwriting. Each prediction detailed significant events in Cryptic Seeker's life, some mundane, others terrifyingly specific. One prediction stood out: on your 30th birthday, you will meet your end at the hands of someone you trust. A chill enveloped Jake as he read those words. He couldn't shake off the feeling that this was more than just a coincidence. It felt like a warning. Despite his growing unease, Jake couldn't help but feel drawn to the idea of uncovering his own fate. What if he could find his own time capsule? What if he could learn about his future? The thought consumed him as he spent hours researching how to access similar dark websites. Days turned into weeks as he delved deeper into this rabbit hole. He encountered bizarre rituals and dubious sellers claiming to possess artifacts that could reveal one's destiny. Finally, after countless searches and sleepless nights, he found what he believed to be a genuine time capsule available for purchase on a shadowy marketplace. The seller's profile was minimalistic, just a single image of an ornate box with strange symbols etched into its surface. The listing promised that this capsule contained not only predictions but also glimpses into the future itself. It was priced steeply, but Jake's obsession outweighed any rational thought. He made the purchase without hesitation. When the package arrived days later, it felt like Christmas morning wrapped in dread. The box was heavier than expected, its surface cold and unwelcoming. As he unwrapped it, his heart raced with anticipation and fear. Inside lay an assortment of objects, photographs from different eras, letters yellowed with age, and a small mirror that seemed to shimmer unnaturally under his desk lamp. But it was the note tucked beneath these items that sent his pulse racing, a handwritten message that read, "What you see will change everything." Jake hesitated for a moment before pulling out the mirror. As he gazed into its depths, shadows danced around him. Suddenly, images began to flicker across its surface, fragments of moments yet to come. He saw faces he recognized and places he knew well, but they were interspersed with scenes of chaos and despair. Then came the most horrifying vision: himself lying lifeless on a cold floor, surrounded by familiar faces twisted in shock and horror. The date flashed before him: his 30th birthday. Panic surged through him as reality set in. This wasn't just a game anymore. What had he unleashed? As dread settled in his stomach like lead, Jake realized that some secrets were better left buried, especially those concerning fate itself. This segment sets up an intriguing premise while building suspense and foreshadowing future events in your video series. Jake sat frozen in his chair, the mirror still clutched tightly in his hands. The images replayed in his mind like a broken record, each frame more haunting than the last. He could hardly breathe as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. Was this a prank? A cruel joke designed to scare him? Or was it a genuine glimpse into a terrifying future? He shook his head, trying to dispel the thoughts swirling in his mind. "It's just a reflection," he muttered to himself, but deep down, he felt the weight of inevitability pressing down on him. He had always been skeptical of fate and fortune-telling, but this felt different. The clarity of the images, the chilling precision of the date, it all gnawed at him. After a restless night filled with nightmares, Jake decided he needed answers. He returned to the dark web, determined to find out more about the time capsule and its origins. He logged into the same chat room where he had first encountered Cryptic Seeker, hoping for guidance or perhaps even a warning. As he entered, he noticed that the atmosphere had shifted. Users were discussing bizarre occurrences and strange happenings linked to their own time capsules. One user claimed their capsule had predicted a family tragedy, while another spoke of a friend who vanished after opening theirs. The more he read, the more Jake felt like he was standing on the edge of a precipice. Anyone heard from Cryptic Seeker? Jake typed into the chat. His fingers trembled as he pressed enter, anxiety bubbling within him. Moments later, a response appeared from a user named Ghostwatcher. Cryptic Seeker is gone, they typed. Last I heard, they were trying to warn others about what they found. But it's too late for them. Jake's heart raced. What do you mean? What happened? Ghostwatcher replied quickly. They opened their capsule and saw their future death just like you did. They started freaking out and tried to warn everyone. Then, they disappeared. The words sent shivers down Jake's spine. Disappearances were common in this part of the internet. People often vanished without a trace after digging too deep into forbidden knowledge. But this was different. It felt personal. What did they see? Jake asked, desperate for more information. Something about betrayal, Ghostwatcher replied cryptically. They mentioned someone close to them would be involved in their demise. Jake felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He thought of his friends and family who could possibly betray him. His mind raced through faces: his best friend Alex, who had always been there for him, his sister Sarah, who sometimes seemed too protective, even his parents, whose expectations weighed heavily on him. The chat continued buzzing with warnings and tales of woe, but Jake couldn't focus on anything else. He had to get rid of that mirror. It was too dangerous to keep around. But what if it was also his only chance to change his fate? The thought tormented him as he paced around his apartment. In a moment of desperation, he decided to reach out to Alex. They had been friends since childhood and shared everything: secrets, fears, dreams. If anyone could help him make sense of this madness, it was Alex. Hey man, can we talk? Jake texted him late that night. Sure. What's up? Alex replied almost immediately. Jake hesitated for a moment before typing back. It's kind of serious. Okay, Alex responded with concern evident in his tone through text. I'll come over. When Alex arrived an hour later, he found Jake pacing anxiously in his living room, wringing his hands together as if trying to squeeze out all the anxiety that had built up inside him. Dude, you look like you've seen a ghost, Alex said with a nervous laugh as he settled onto the couch. I might have, Jake replied grimly as he sat across from him. I found something online. Something really messed up. What do you mean? Alex asked, leaning forward with interest. Jake took a deep breath and recounted everything: the discovery of the time capsule on the dark web, Cryptic Seeker's warning about future death predictions, and finally revealing what he saw in the mirror: himself dead on his 30th birthday. Alex listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern as Jake spoke. When he finished recounting everything, there was silence between them, a heavy silence filled with unspoken fears. Okay, so what are you going to do? Alex finally asked. I don't know, Jake admitted. I want to destroy that mirror and forget about all this nonsense. But what if it's real? What if I'm actually going to die? Alex frowned thoughtfully. Maybe we should try to figure out how we can change whatever it is you saw. Jake shook his head vigorously. You don't understand. It said someone I trust would betray me. How can I trust anyone now? Look, Alex said firmly. You can't live your life in fear of something that might not even happen. We need to confront this head on. Reluctantly convinced by Alex's determination, Jake agreed to keep the mirror for now, but promised himself that he would find a way to get rid of it soon before it consumed him entirely. As they brainstormed ideas on how to prevent whatever fate awaited Jake, they decided to dive deeper into researching time capsules and their connections on the dark web. They spent hours scouring forums and reading stories similar to Jake's, each one more disturbing than the last. One story caught their attention. It detailed an individual who had opened their time capsule only to find that every prediction came true in horrifying ways, a series of events that led up to their demise exactly as foretold. The final entry described how they attempted to change their fate by confronting those around them, but ultimately failed because they couldn't identify who would betray them until it was too late. The realization hit Jake like a punch in the gut. If he didn't figure out who might betray him soon enough, he could be walking into an inevitable trap without even realizing it. As dawn broke outside their window, casting pale light across the room filled with shadows of doubt and fear, Jake felt an unsettling sense of urgency wash over him. He knew that time was running out not just until his birthday, but until he could uncover the truth behind those terrifying images that haunted him every waking moment. With renewed determination fueled by dread and desperation, Jake resolved that he would not let fate dictate his life any longer. Instead, he would take control before it was too late. This segment builds on Jake's experience while introducing new elements of suspense and urgency as he grapples with the implications of what he's discovered. As the days passed, Jake felt the weight of dread settle heavily on his shoulders. His 30th birthday loomed closer, and with it, the chilling prediction that had been etched into his mind since he first gazed into the mirror. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo ominously in his ears, a constant reminder that time was running out. Jake and Alex spent every spare moment researching time capsules and their dark connections. They scoured forums, watched videos, and even reached out to others who claimed to have experienced similar phenomena. But with each new story they uncovered, Jake's anxiety only deepened. The more they learned, the more it felt like they were unraveling a web of fate that was far beyond their control. One night, as they sat in Jake's dimly lit living room surrounded by scattered papers and open laptops, Alex stumbled upon a chilling thread titled The Betrayer's Mark. It detailed a series of individuals who had opened their time capsules only to find that they had been marked for death by someone close to them, someone they trusted implicitly. The stories were filled with accounts of betrayal, manipulation, and ultimately demise. Jake, Alex said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper as he read through the posts. This could be what you're dealing with. Jake's heart raced as he leaned closer to the screen. What do you mean? Look at this. Alex pointed at a comment that described how one victim had started seeing signs around them, subtle changes in behavior from friends and family that hinted at betrayal. They didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Jake felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He thought back to his own life, Sarah's overprotectiveness, Alex's unwavering support. Could these be signs? Was he missing something crucial? Maybe we should start watching everyone around you, Alex suggested. We need to figure out who might be involved before it's too late. Reluctantly, Jake agreed. They began compiling a list of people in Jake's life who could potentially play a role in whatever fate awaited him. As they worked late into the night, Jake felt an unsettling shift in his perception of those he loved. Every small gesture or comment became suspect. Every laugh shared felt like a potential mask hiding treachery. The following days were filled with tension as Jake tried to maintain normalcy while grappling with his growing paranoia. He avoided large gatherings and kept conversations superficial, fearing that any deeper connection could lead him closer to his doom. He even started distancing himself from Sarah and Alex, convinced that isolating himself would help him stay safe. But isolation only deepened his fear. He began experiencing vivid nightmares, visions of betrayal that left him waking up in cold sweats, heart pounding wildly in his chest. In these dreams he saw faces contorted with malice and heard whispers echoing warnings he couldn't quite decipher. One night, after another sleepless episode filled with frantic visions of death and despair, Jake decided he needed answers, real answers. He returned to the dark web in search of anyone who might have insights into how to break free from this curse. He logged into a different chat room this time, a more secretive one known for discussing occult practices and supernatural phenomena. The users here were shrouded in anonymity. Their avatars were dark silhouettes against an ominous backdrop. Help needed. Jake typed hesitantly into the chat box. I found a time capsule that showed my future death. The response was almost immediate. You're not alone. Many have faced this fate. Jake's heart raced as he read through the replies from various users sharing their own harrowing experiences with time capsules. One user named Shadowseer claimed to have found a way to confront their fate directly through an ancient ritual designed to reveal hidden truths. Meet me at midnight, Grove, Shadowseer wrote cryptically. Bring your mirror. Jake felt a mix of fear and curiosity wash over him. Could this be the answer he was looking for? He glanced at Alex, who sat across from him with an expression of concern. I don't know about this, Alex said cautiously when Jake shared the plan. It sounds risky. I have to try something, Jake insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. I can't just sit here waiting for something bad to happen. After some back-and-forth discussion, Alex reluctantly agreed to accompany him for support. They made plans to meet Shadowseer at Midnight Grove, a secluded park rumored to be haunted by restless spirits. As midnight approached, They drove through winding roads lined with trees that seemed to close in around them like dark sentinels guarding secrets best left undisturbed. When they finally arrived at Midnight Grove, an eerie fog hung low over the ground, casting ghostly shadows beneath the moonlight. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked nervously as they stepped out of the car. Jake nodded but felt a knot tighten in his stomach as they ventured deeper into the grove. The air grew colder with each step until it felt charged with an unexplainable energy. They arrived at a clearing where Shadowseer awaited them, a figure cloaked in darkness with only their eyes visible beneath a hooded robe. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as they approached. "You brought the mirror?" Shadowseer asked without preamble. Jake nodded and pulled it from his backpack, holding it out cautiously. "Good," Shadowseer replied, their voice low and gravelly. "We will confront what lies ahead together." As Shadowseer began chanting words that sent chills down Jake's spine, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him, the kind that made every hair on his body stand on end. Shadows danced around them, as if alive whispers echoed through the trees like warnings carried on the wind. "Look into the mirror," Shadowseer instructed firmly. Jake took a deep breath and turned toward the mirror's reflective surface once more. This time, however, it felt different, charged with energy from Shadowseer's incantations. As he gazed into it, images began swirling again, but this time they were accompanied by voices, echoes of laughter mixed with cries for help. He saw flashes of familiar faces, Sarah smiling brightly one moment before morphing into a look of betrayal, Alex standing beside him, but then fading away into darkness, shadows looming over him like vultures waiting for their prey. "No! Stop!" Jake shouted suddenly as panic surged through him. Shadowseer continued chanting despite Jake's protests until finally the mirror shattered violently in his hands, a cacophony of glass raining down around them like deadly confetti. In that moment of chaos, everything shifted. The shadows grew darker, whispers turned into screams, reality warped around him until he found himself standing alone amidst swirling darkness. "Who will betray you?" a voice echoed ominously from all directions, disembodied yet eerily familiar. Jake stumbled back in shock as visions flooded back. He saw himself lying lifeless on that cold floor, surrounded by familiar faces, twisted in shock. But now those faces morphed into something unrecognizable, faces filled with malice rather than love. Suddenly everything went black, the world around him collapsing into nothingness until all that remained was silence, suffocating silence. When Jake finally opened his eyes again, he found himself back at Midnight Grove, the clearing empty, except for Alex standing nearby looking bewildered. "What happened?" Alex asked breathlessly, as if waking from a nightmare himself. "I don't know," Jake replied shakily as he tried to process what had just occurred, the shattered mirror symbolizing not just broken predictions but also shattered trust among those closest to him. As they made their way back home under an oppressive silence filled only by their footsteps crunching against fallen leaves, Jake couldn't shake off one lingering thought: had he truly escaped fate? Or had he merely delayed what was meant to come? With each passing day leading up to his birthday becoming increasingly unbearable, a countdown ticking away toward an inevitable confrontation, not just against death but against those who might betray him, Jake realized there was no escaping this twisted game anymore. It had become part of him now, a shadow lurking just beyond reach, waiting for its moment to strike. This segment heightens the tension and delves deeper into Jake's psychological struggle while introducing supernatural elements through Shadowseer's ritual. The days following the ritual at Midnight Grove were a blur of anxiety and dread for Jake. Each morning he awoke with a sense of impending doom, the weight of the shattered mirror still heavy in his mind. He felt as if he were living on borrowed time, each tick of the clock echoing ominously in his ears. His 30th birthday was now just days away, and with it, the haunting prediction that had become an inescapable reality. Jake's paranoia escalated to new heights. He began scrutinizing every interaction with his friends and family, searching for signs of betrayal. Even the smallest gestures, a casual laugh from Alex, a concerned look from Sarah, felt loaded with hidden meanings. He found himself withdrawing further into isolation, convinced that distancing himself from those he loved would somehow shield him from whatever fate awaited him. One evening, as he sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, Jake's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Hey, are we still on for dinner tomorrow? I miss you." He stared at the screen, heart racing. The last time they had dinner together, he had felt an unsettling tension in the air, almost like she was probing for something. What if she was part of this betrayal? What if she was just pretending to care while secretly plotting against him? "No," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. I can't keep thinking like this, but deep down, he knew that the fear was consuming him. After a long internal struggle, Jake decided to meet Sarah for dinner. He needed to confront her about how he felt he needed to know if she was hiding something. As he prepared for their meeting, he practiced what he would say over and over in his mind, trying to find the right words to express his fears without sounding paranoid. When they met at their favorite restaurant, Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, but all he could focus on was Sarah's smile, a smile that now seemed both genuine and suspicious at once. "Hey," she said brightly as she hugged him. "It's so good to see you." "Yeah," Jake replied, forcing a smile. "You too." They sat down at their usual table by the window, and as they ordered their food, Jake struggled to maintain a normal conversation. He found himself glancing around nervously, half expecting someone to jump out from behind a corner and reveal some hidden truth. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked suddenly, her brow furrowing with concern. "You seem..." Jake took a deep breath, deciding it was now or never. "I've been feeling really anxious lately," he admitted. "I found something online that, well, it showed me my future death." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I opened this time capsule I found on the dark web," Jake explained hesitantly. "It showed me dying on my 30th birthday, and I think someone close to me is going to betray me." For a moment, silence hung between them like a thick fog. Sarah looked taken aback, but then leaned forward earnestly. "Jake, you know this sounds crazy, right? You can't let something like that control your life." "I know it sounds crazy," he shot back defensively. "But what if it's real? What if it's not just some random prediction?" "Then we'll figure it out together," she said softly. "You don't have to go through this alone." Jake felt a flicker of hope at her words, but quickly extinguished it with doubt. Could she really be trusted? Or was this all part of some elaborate ruse? As they finished their meal and walked outside into the cool night air, Jake couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. They strolled through the nearby park under the soft glow of streetlights when suddenly Sarah stopped walking. "Jake," she said hesitantly, "I need to tell you something." His heart raced as he braced himself for whatever confession might come next. "I've been worried about you," she continued slowly. "You've been isolating yourself from everyone, even Alex." "I'm just trying to protect myself," Jake replied defensively. But from what Sarah pressed gently, "You're pushing everyone away when we're all just trying to help you." In that moment of vulnerability, Jake felt a surge of emotion rise within him, anger mixed with fear and confusion. What if one of you is involved in this? What if I can't trust anyone? "Jake," Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising slightly in frustration. "You can't live like this. You're going to drive yourself insane." He turned away from her abruptly, feeling overwhelmed by conflicting emotions swirling within him, fear of betrayal battling against his desire for connection. "I need some space," Jake said finally before walking away briskly without looking back. As he made his way home through the darkened streets illuminated only by flickering streetlights overhead, each step echoing loudly against the pavement, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was spiraling deeper into paranoia. That night was filled with restless tossing and turning as nightmares plagued him. Once again, visions of betrayal played out like a twisted movie reel before him, Alex standing over him with a knife, Sarah laughing maniacally as shadows enveloped them both, faces distorted by malice creeping ever closer until they consumed him whole. When morning finally broke through the darkness outside his window, it brought no relief, only an overwhelming sense of dread settled heavily on his chest like an anchor dragging him down into despair. With only 2 days left until his fateful birthday, Jake knew he had to take action before it was too late, before whatever dark force loomed over him could strike again without warning. He decided to confront Alex directly about his suspicions. After all, Alex had been his closest friend since childhood. Surely there must be some way to discern whether or not he could truly be trusted. The following day after work, Jake invited Alex over under false pretenses, a casual hangout meant to mask the tension bubbling beneath the surface. As they settled onto the couch with beers in hand, Jake felt every muscle in his body tense up as he prepared himself for what lay ahead. "Hey man," Jake started casually, but then faltered as doubt crept back into his mind again. Could Alex really be trusted? "Everything okay?" Alex asked curiously as he took a sip from his drink. "Yeah, I just wanted to talk about something serious," Jake replied hesitantly. Alex raised an eyebrow but nodded encouragingly for him to continue. I've been feeling really anxious lately, Jake admitted finally after swallowing hard against rising fear threatening to choke him up inside. And I found out something. About my future. What do you mean? Alex asked cautiously, now leaning forward slightly, as if sensing how serious this had become. Jake took another deep breath before spilling everything: the time capsule, cryptic seeker, shadow seer, even how he'd seen visions of betrayal involving those closest to him, including Alex himself. For several moments there was silence between them, the air thick with tension as Alex processed everything Jake had just revealed. Finally breaking that silence, Alex spoke up firmly. Dude, you can't let this consume your life. It's just some random prediction. We need to focus on what's real. But what if it isn't? Jake shot back desperately, his voice rising slightly as frustration bubbled over again within him. What if there really is someone out there who wants me dead? Then we'll figure it out together. Alex insisted passionately, now leaning closer across the couch towards Jake, his eyes filled with determination rather than malice, but all Jake could see were shadows lurking behind those familiar features, the very shadows that haunted him every night since this nightmare began. I don't know who I can trust anymore, Jake shouted, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by emotion, tears prickling at the corners of his eyes as panic surged through him, once more threatening to consume everything around him. Jake, Alex said firmly, grabbing hold of both shoulders, forcing their gazes locked together. You need to trust me. I'm not going anywhere. We'll get through this. In that moment, the sincerity in Alex's eyes broke through some barrier within Jake, allowing vulnerability seep through cracks hardened by fear built up over weeks, spent spiraling deeper into paranoia. I'm sorry, Jake whispered, finally feeling defeated yet relieved all at once. I just don't want anything bad happening. We'll protect each other, Alex promised, softly squeezing Jake's shoulders, reassuringly before releasing them slowly, allowing space return between them once more, but now filled instead with newfound hope rather than dread. As they continued talking late into the night, discussing plans for confronting whatever fate awaited them on that fateful day ahead, Jake felt lighter somehow, knowing that perhaps there might still be time left after all. But as midnight approached, the shadows began creeping back into view once more, reminding him that time was running out and soon enough everything would come crashing down around them both. This segment builds on Jake's internal struggle while introducing pivotal moments between him and Alex that deepen their friendship amidst rising tension. The night before Jake's 30th birthday was a restless one. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the shadows dancing ominously in the dim light. Every creak of the house felt amplified, every whisper of the wind outside a reminder that time was slipping away. He could feel the weight of inevitability pressing down on him like a suffocating blanket. Despite Alex's reassurances, doubt gnawed at Jake's mind. He had spent so long consumed by fear that it felt impossible to shake off the belief that someone close to him would betray him. The visions from the shattered mirror haunted him, images of death intertwined with familiar faces, all twisted into expressions of malice. As dawn broke, Jake felt a sense of dread wash over him. Today was the day he would turn 30 and face whatever fate awaited him. He forced himself out of bed, determined to take control of his destiny. He needed to confront his fears head on, and that meant reaching out to Sarah and Alex one last time. Jake texted Sarah early in the morning, "Can we meet? I need to talk." He paced around his apartment, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface as he waited for her response. When she replied almost immediately, agreeing to meet at their usual coffee shop, Jake felt a mix of relief and apprehension. He arrived early, taking a seat at a corner table where he could see the entrance. The coffee shop was bustling with life, but all he could focus on was the impending conversation. When Sarah walked in, her face lit up with a smile that quickly faded as she approached him. "Jake, you look tense." "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot," he admitted, gesturing for her to sit down. As they settled into their seats with steaming cups of coffee between them, Jake took a deep breath. "I need to be honest with you about everything that's been happening." "I'm all ears," Sarah said, her expression shifting to one of concern. "I found that time capsule on the dark web," he began, recounting everything: the predictions, the visions, and his growing paranoia about betrayal. "I can't shake this feeling that someone close to me is going to hurt me." "Jake," Sarah said gently, "you can't let this consume you. It's just a prediction, it doesn't have to dictate your life." "But what if it does?" he pressed, desperation creeping into his voice. "What if it's real? Then we'll face it together," she replied firmly. "You're not alone in this." Jake looked into her eyes and saw sincerity there, something he desperately needed amidst all his fears. But doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. What if this was all part of some elaborate act? What if she was hiding something? I need to know that I can trust you, he said finally. Sarah frowned slightly but nodded. You can trust me, Jake. I promise. As they continued talking, Jake felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a small flame against the overwhelming darkness that had consumed him for so long. But as they finished their coffees and prepared to leave, an unsettling feeling crept back into his mind. Let's meet Alex later, Sarah suggested as they walked out of the cafe together. Yeah. Okay, Jake replied hesitantly. They agreed to meet Alex later that evening for dinner at Jake's apartment, a chance for all three of them to reconnect and confront whatever fears lingered in the air. As night fell and they gathered around Jake's dining table with takeout boxes spread before them, Jake felt an electric tension fill the room. They chatted about mundane topics at first: work, movies, but underneath it all lay an unspoken heaviness that threatened to break through. After dinner, as they cleared away the dishes and settled onto the couch with drinks in hand, Jake knew it was time for the truth to come out once and for all. Hey guys, he started cautiously, glancing between Sarah and Alex. I need to talk about something serious. What is it? Alex asked, immediately sensing the shift in atmosphere. I've been feeling really paranoid lately, Jake admitted slowly. About everything, the predictions from that time capsule, and how I can't shake this feeling that someone close to me is going to betray me. There was silence as both Sarah and Alex exchanged glances, filled with concern. Jake, Alex said finally after a moment's pause, you need to stop thinking like this. It's messing with your head. But what if it's true? Jake pressed desperately, his voice rising slightly as frustration bubbled over again within him. What if one of you is involved? What? Sarah exclaimed incredulously. How could you even think that? I don't know, Jake shouted back, feeling overwhelmed again by emotion, tears pricking at his eyes as panic surged through him, once more threatening to consume everything around him. I just don't want anything bad happening. Neither do we, Alex replied firmly, leaning closer across the couch towards Jake, his eyes filled with determination rather than malice, but all Jake could see were shadows lurking behind those familiar features, the very shadows that haunted him every night since this nightmare began. In that moment, the sincerity in their eyes broke through some barrier within Jake, allowing vulnerability seep through cracks hardened by fear built up over weeks, spent spiraling deeper into paranoia. I'm sorry, Jake whispered, finally feeling defeated yet relieved all at once. I just don't want anything bad happening. We'll protect each other, Alex promised, softly squeezing Jake's shoulders reassuringly before releasing them slowly, allowing space return between them once more, but now filled instead with newfound hope rather than dread. But just as they began discussing plans for confronting whatever fate awaited them on that fateful day ahead, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by frantic shouting. What was that? Sarah exclaimed, jumping up from her seat, looking towards the window wide-eyed. Jake's heart raced as he rushed towards the window, peering out into darkness beyond the streetlights flickering ominously, illuminating chaos unfolding outside. A group of people had gathered near their apartment building, shouting angrily, while others filmed on their phones, capturing every moment like vultures circling prey. What's going on? Alex asked anxiously, joining Jake at the window, trying to get a better view amidst growing panic settling heavily over them both. Suddenly a figure stumbled into view, a man covered in blood staggering towards them with wild eyes filled with terror. Help, he screamed frantically. They're coming for me. Jake felt his stomach drop as adrenaline surged through him. This wasn't just some random incident. It felt connected somehow, a dark omen signaling something far worse lurking just beneath surface reality itself. Before they could react further, the man collapsed onto their doorstep, gasping for breath, while shouting warnings about something sinister approaching. They're coming, he cried desperately. You have to hide. Jake exchanged frantic glances with Sarah and Alex. They had no idea what was happening, but instinct kicked in. They needed to act fast before whatever dark force loomed outside found its way inside. Get back, Jake shouted urgently, pushing everyone away from windows while locking doors tightly behind them. As chaos erupted outside, the sound of sirens blaring mixed with screams echoed through walls surrounding them, creating an atmosphere thick enough cut through with sheer terror. What do we do? Sarah asked, panicking now, gripping onto Alex tightly as fear coursed through her veins. We need to find somewhere safe, Alex replied, scanning around frantically, searching for options amidst growing uncertainty looming ever closer, threatening to engulf them whole. They quickly moved towards hallway leading deeper into apartment complex, hoping against hope there might be somewhere hidden away from whatever horrors awaited beyond those doors. As they reached basement level, Jake felt an eerie sense settle over him. Shadows danced along walls, casting strange shapes, flickering under dim lights, illuminating only fragments reality left behind. "Is this safe?" Sarah whispered, nervously clutching onto Alex tighter than ever before as anxiety surged through her body like electric current, threatening explode any moment now. "I don't know," Jake admitted, feeling uncertainty creep back into mind again, making every heartbeat feel louder than thunder rumbling overhead. Suddenly a loud crash echoed from above, sending vibrations shaking ground beneath feet, causing panic flare up once more within hearts racing against time itself. "We have to go," Alex shouted urgently, grabbing hold onto both friends, pulling them deeper down corridor, leading further away from chaos erupting above. Just then a shadowy figure appeared at end hallway, blocking path ahead, its silhouette looming large against flickering lights, casting haunting image etched forever into memory. "Who are you?" Jake yelled defiantly, stepping forward, despite fear clawing inside, gut threatening freeze him in place. The figure stepped closer, revealing itself a familiar face twisted by darkness, eyes filled with malice reflecting everything lost a long way, leading up until now. "Did you really think you could escape?" it hissed menacingly, voice echoing hauntingly through empty space surrounding them. In that moment, all hope shattered like glass scattering across floor beneath feet. Reality warped around them until nothing remained but whispers carried away on wind howling outside, threatening consume everything whole. As darkness closed in around them, their fates intertwined, forever sealed within twisted game played out across shadows lurking just beyond reach, waiting patiently strike when least expected. This segment builds tension and culminates in a dramatic confrontation as chaos erupts outside, while revealing deeper psychological horror elements intertwined with supernatural themes. The shadowy figure loomed in front of Jake, Sarah, and Alex, its presence suffocating. The dim light flickered above them, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Jake's heart raced as he recognized the face twisted by darkness. It was his own reflection, distorted and malevolent. "Did you really think you could escape?" the figure hissed, its voice a chilling echo of Jake's own. "You've been running from the truth, but now it's time to face it." "What are you?" Jake demanded, stepping forward despite the fear gripping him. "What do you want?" The figure laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Jake's spine. "I am what you fear most, your betrayal, your paranoia, your darkest thoughts made flesh. You've created me with every doubt you've nurtured." Jake felt as if the ground beneath him was crumbling away. "No, this can't be real," he shouted, desperation flooding his voice. "Real? Oh, it's very real," the figure replied, stepping closer until Jake could see every detail of its twisted visage. "You've spent so long fearing betrayal that you've betrayed yourself. You've pushed away those who care about you. You've isolated yourself in your own mind." "No," Jake cried out, shaking his head violently. "I'm not like you." "Are you sure?" The figure leaned in closer, its breath cold against Jake's skin. "You think you're protecting yourself by pushing everyone away? Look where that has led you. You're alone just like I am." Jake felt a wave of anger surge through him as he confronted this dark manifestation of his fears. "I won't let you control me," he shouted defiantly. "Control?" the figure sneered. "You've already lost control. You're on the brink of self-destruction." Suddenly, Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Jake, this isn't real. You have to remember who you are. We're here for you." Jake turned to her, his heart pounding with confusion and fear. But what if she's lying? What if she's part of this? "Look at us," Alex shouted, stepping beside Sarah. "We're your friends. We care about you. Don't let this thing twist your mind any further." The figure recoiled at their words, its form flickering as if struggling against an unseen force. "They can't help you," it hissed. "They will betray you just like everyone else." "No," Jake shouted back with newfound determination. "I won't let you win. I refuse to believe that." With each word he spoke, he felt a surge of strength building within him, a fire igniting against the cold grip of despair that had held him captive for so long. "Jake," Sarah urged again, her eyes filled with sincerity. "You have to fight this. Remember all the good times we've had, the laughter and support. We're stronger together." As her words resonated within him, Jake felt a warmth spreading through his chest, a light pushing back against the darkness surrounding him. "I choose to trust them," he declared loudly, his voice echoing through the basement as he faced the shadowy figure head-on. In that moment of defiance, something shifted within the air around them. Shadows began to recede as light poured in from an unseen source, illuminating everything around them. The figure shrieked in rage as it began to dissolve into wisps of darkness, swirling away into nothingness. "You can't escape your fate," it screamed as it faded from view. But Jake stood firm, heart pounding yet resolute, knowing that he had reclaimed his power over fear itself. With one final breath, the darkness dissipated entirely, leaving behind only silence, a heavy stillness settling over them, like a blanket wrapped tightly around their shoulders. As reality returned, Jake found himself standing once more alongside Sarah and Alex, who looked equally bewildered yet relieved. "What just happened?" Alex asked breathlessly, glancing around, trying to comprehend everything unfolding before them. I think I faced my fears," Jake replied, slowly feeling weight lift off his shoulders. The burden of doubt finally shattered into pieces, scattered across floor beneath their feet. Sarah smiled brightly through tears glistening in her eyes, filled with pride rather than fear, now radiating warmth instead, a sense of hope blossoming amidst chaos they had just endured together. "Let's get out of here," she said softly, taking hold onto both friends' hands, leading them back towards exit, where echoes faded behind them, leaving only memories lingering behind like ghosts haunting past. As they emerged into moonlit night outside, the world felt different, somehow lighter yet filled with possibilities waiting ahead rather than shadows looming ever closer, threatening to consume everything whole. They stood outside for several moments, absorbing fresh air, filling lungs with renewed energy coursing through veins, igniting flames within hearts once more beating strong against odds stacked high against them. "I can't believe we made it," Alex said, finally breaking silence filled only by sounds surrounding them, the chirping crickets serenading victory won against darkness lurking just beyond reach. "Thank you both," Jake said, sincerely looking at each friend standing beside him. Together they had faced down fears that threatened to tear apart everything they held dear and emerged stronger than before. But even as relief washed over him, a nagging thought crept back into mind, reminding him that tomorrow would still come. His birthday still awaited, but now, instead of dread filling heart, there was hope blossoming anew, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they walked back towards their cars parked nearby, Jake glanced up at stars twinkling above, illuminating night sky filled with endless possibilities waiting just beyond horizon, stretching far beyond what could ever imagine possible before. "Tomorrow is going to be different," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else, but deep down knew it was true. No longer would fear dictate choices made or paths taken moving forward into future unknown. With renewed determination burning bright inside heart, Jake felt ready to embrace whatever fate awaited him on that fateful day ahead, knowing he wouldn't face it alone anymore. Together they would confront whatever challenges lay ahead, side by side, united against darkness threatening to tear apart everything they held dear. As dawn broke on his 30th birthday, the sun rose high, illuminating world around him, casting warm glow across landscape filled with promise waiting patiently unfold before their eyes, ready to embrace whatever came next unafraid. And so began new chapter, written not just by fate but by choices made together, forging bonds stronger than any darkness could ever break apart. United against all odds, they would stand firm together, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing love, friendship would always guide them through even darkest nights, illuminating path forward into bright future waiting patiently just beyond reach. This final segment wraps up Jake's journey as he confronts his fears and embraces hope and friendship while facing his future with newfound strength.